Hey everybody, I'm so glad that I get the opportunity to chat with you today. It's September, as you know, and September is a really important month. It's Service Dog Awareness Month as well as Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. So I wanted to talk with Shannon, our head trainer here at Dogs for Our Brave. And coming into the organization, I wasn't really aware of how to be around a service dog and what to do if you see a service dog in public. So I think we should just start with some basic education. So Shannon, what do you do when you're out in public and you see that somebody has a service dog, or what don't you do?
Yeah, so the most important thing when you see a service dog out in public is that you don't want to distract them. You don't want to talk to them, reach your hand out to them and try to grab their attention. Anything that might pull their attention away from the person they're supposed to be focused on. Yeah, so you just want to make sure that you're giving a polite amount of space. You can look at them, but you don't want to say anything like hi or anything like that, because then they'll want to come and say hi to you. They're only dogs. They want to say hi.
Gosh, it's so hard, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to pet a dog, and you see the vest, and it even says, please do not pet. And the one thing I've noticed though, now when I'm out in public with our dogs in training, and you or one of our other trainers, is so many people see that, but they still want to pet the dog, or they go in and they do pet the dog.
Yeah, so most of the time the first thing they see is the dog. They don't really read the signs that say do not pet or service dog in training. But yes, you always want to give a polite amount of space. If the person who is handling the dog seems like they're open to it, you can always ask if it's okay, but always be prepared that it's not okay and that's not anything wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. You're just asking, and if they're working, you just have to understand that as well.
Yeah, I'm guilty. When I came on board, there were just so many times that I struggle with, you see the dog and you know that you shouldn't pet it, but you sometimes do, and you're right. It's not something to be ashamed of. But I think the biggest thing is awareness. So kind of piggybacking off of what you just said, if you notice that a dog has a vest on, do yourself a little of due diligence and stop and actually look to see, is that a service dog, or do they just have a really cool vest, but they're somebody's pet dog?
Yeah.
But what type of distraction, how does that really, if somebody does come in and pet or even ask, what are they really distracting that dog from doing?
So it could be a number of different things. You don't really know what the service dog's job is just because a service dog is out in public. So with our dogs, a lot of the time it could be mobility, they could drop something. So our dogs need to be focused on our veterans at all times, because they could drop keys, they could drop medicine, and the dog needs to be focused on that to be able to get it and bring it back to the veteran without causing them any more anxiety being in public, having to grab the dog's attention. So it's not necessarily bad, but if you were working at your desk, working at your computer, and someone came up and says hi to you, you're not necessarily offended or anything like that, but you're losing your focus from your computer. And if your computer is a person that needs help, that could really change things a lot. So it's not just stepping away from a simple task, it's losing all focus on the thing that they need to help.
Wow.
They could alert for seizures, mobility, really anything like that.
That's such a good analogy. What a takeaway. I'm at my desk all day long, and not that I mind anyone coming to ask a question, but when I'm focused especially on numbers, budget, making proofreading something, and somebody comes in to have a conversation, it stops you from exactly what you're doing, and you're like, oh God, where was I at?
Yep.
And so that dog's purpose is to stay focused 100% of the time while they're working.
Yeah, when they've got that vest on, that's their work uniform. So you really shouldn't distract them from work. If you know somebody who has a service dog and they're relaxing, then definitely ask if it's okay to pet, because they are dogs in their off time, so they can still be pet and have fun. But when they're working, you definitely want to keep making sure that you don't bother them too much.
I love that you just said that. That's my last question in relation to, I always assumed that a service dog was very stoic and it's working, right? So it has its vest on. I was so surprised, and in a great way, to find out that, oh my gosh, they're still a dog. They have time. Can you talk a little bit about vest on, vest off, just so everyone understands the the perks of being a service dog too?
Yeah, so a lot of the times when they go home with their veteran, most of the time they're going to be working. The vest is going to be on, especially when they're out of the house. But when they come home with their veteran, especially after they've had that initial bond time where they've really just been working, and just know exactly what to tune into with their specific veteran, then they start to have the period where they can take a little step back from working and they can have their time off. So when they are home and there's no work to do, you can take the vest off, play fetch, give them toys, run around all the time. We've got a ton of our service dogs that are placed right now where we've got pictures from our veterans where they're just having fun, loving on them and everything. But then when they put that vest on and go back out to work, they're totally focused on the task.
I think I would come back reincarnated as a Dogs for Brave service dog. I do. You know, we've rescued them, so we've saved their life, but they also are choosing to work. And I think that was a really interesting thing that I learned, is that there are times when you guys want to train that dog may not be in the right mood or moment. And also, you know, there are things that maybe they just don't want to learn. Obviously, with the assessment that you do, for the most part, you and Paul have figured out those dogs want to be working dogs. That's why that time off is important, but that we're not making them or pressuring them in any way to be a working dog. They appreciate that lifestyle.
Yeah, especially in the beginning of their training when they're struggling with things. If they're having trouble doing one task, we'll maybe take a step back, go run around and play some fetch, and then come back to it. They're much more focused on it. So they do have some time being a normal dog while they're in training. And then, of course, once they go back home to their veteran, they'll get, you know, their Christmases and their holidays, birthdays and stuff where they get to be a normal dog too.
Yeah. Well, Shannon, I want to thank you for your time today. And for everybody else, if you ever want to come tour the training center with Shannon or Paul or Bridget, please just give us a call. I think it would be it's really incredible to learn how a service dog is trained. It just helps you understand more about being when you encounter a service dog in public, but you have our information in the newsletter, so please do that. But before I stop, I also want to talk about the fact that September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and I transitioned to that as a very serious topic, but it needs to be talked about. So Shannon, can you talk to me a little bit about Suicide Prevention Awareness Month?
Yeah, so we know here at Dogs for Our Brave that veterans are at a higher risk of suicide than the general public. So in addition to the dogs that we train, there is also a lifeline that you can call, anybody can call, 988. It is the suicide and mental health crisis line. It's 911 for mental health and suicide crisis. You can call that number anybody, anywhere. So if you know somebody who needs that number, make sure that they know it and make sure that they have your number too.
We are aware at Dogs for Our Brave that veterans are at a higher risk of taking their own lives than the general public. And right now, 22 veterans a day are taking their own life. We're trying to give the opportunity and be a piece of the puzzle of bringing that 22 closer to zero. But it truly takes everyone and their awareness of the fact that there's so many struggles that you don't visibly see. So again, just always remember to check in on your friends, check in on your veterans, and then nationwide, the 988 is nationally recognized. So that is a suicide and crisis lifeline, and just encourage people to use it if in need. You can use it yourself and help somebody else and pass that along, and just make sure that that awareness is there. And again, that number is 988, and it's suicide and crisis. It's a suicide and crisis lifeline. We've covered a lot today on the monthly message, a couple really important topics. For additional information, check out dfob.org, and remember to check in on your friends.